a question for our two first speakers, please. Lady over here, Graham.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's on.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. That was really inspirational and lots of comments on that. I just wanted to ask you, Lund, with the built environment piece, what's your views on the net zero estate playbook, which came out recently?
Yeah, really positive about it. I think this is the one that the Office of Government Property produced. So we worked with them on it and inputted into it, and we've been talking together about how to further promote it as well. So really, really positive on it. I think personally for me, it'd be great to see how it interacts with just the government state in general, and also just thinking about the greening government commitments, as well as the government buying standard for construction and buildings as well, to look and see how that all then unpackages together and is applied in reality across the government state. But otherwise, a fantastic first step there.
Do you mind if I follow up? It's quite complicated though, like from an accessibility perspective, like the language that's used within it and the steps. You can understand why government sometimes gets themselves tangled up, because there's so much, you've got to think about this, you need to do this, you need to do that, and you can see why people then go, actually, this just feels too difficult. Is there a way to sort of bridge that? Because it's super comprehensive, which is great, but I feel that there almost needs to be a bridging for those that are just starting on the net zero journey.
I mean, I think that's something that we can definitely feed back to the government. We actually have a meeting with the team in the next 2 weeks, so happy to feed that back directly. As I understand it, they are looking at ways to unpackage it and to share it more in whatever way they see is appropriate, and obviously to the way that we develop and share information as well. That's something we can feed back to them. So I'm happy to take that away and share that with them. But regardless, separately, as part of our policy work with government, we're going to be lobbying for a lot of accessible information to support policy and regulatory changes as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. There were a couple of other hands. Pascal.
Thank you, Georgia. I think my question is, as you know, as suppliers not only need to come up with a net zero plan, but also need to support our supply chain with the net zero planning. So I've already seen 2 or 3 different models, UK GBC and TCFD. So is it a standard way of planning net zero? Step 1, because otherwise we are at risk of just reporting different things rather than actually doing something about it. The second one is part of the value chain. I also noticed government is involved, TCFD, and also recently we submitted CCS framework. Again, are we working with the government in standardizing what their suppliers should come out with in net zero so that we all are working towards one way?
I think this is a double act.
Did you get the first bit of Pascal's question because his mic wasn't working?
I think so. It was about standards and frameworks and how to report consistently, I think it was. So there, from a UK GBC perspective, I think it was in 2019 we released the framework definition, and that was there to help fill that gap and support enablement to provide more of a consistent way around about planning for net zero and reporting against it as well. At the moment, we're working with a whole range of organisations, mainly professional institutions at the moment, to look at developing an industry-owned standard which will support which will provide clarity against net zero carbon claims, because there'll be a consistent way for everybody to focus on, first of all, planning that journey, but then also reporting against it. That's in its very early stages at the moment. As I say, it's an industry-owned standard, so it's taking a little bit of time for us to come together and agree before we start to dive into the detail, but that exists at the moment. In terms of standard strategies, I wasn't sure if there's anything that you want.
First of all, I'd say the first challenge that we have is actually getting reliable data. is the first thing. So, it's quite easy for us to talk about kind of highfalutin ideas about net zero, but when we go to assets, one of the biggest problems we have is that people just don't know, they don't know whether the meters are owned by them, they don't know what's connected to what, there's huge data gaps. So the first thing is getting your house in order and making sure that we've got really good, reliable data. And we usually find that there are enormous cost savings straight away because people realise that they're paying too much. They've got, we're working with a client at the moment who's just been using individual meters with British Gas for like the last 20 years and they haven't reviewed their tariffs, they're not bulk buying, nothing. So there's a lot to do at the beginning for most clients. Once we get to that position, it's then benchmarking. So exactly as I said, that we need to start looking at our energy consumption in context. So is this good, bad, ugly? Usually ugly. And start to work out, okay, how do we perform against the framework? So whatever science-based framework you use, whether it's CREM, Science Based Targets Initiative, UK GBC, but essentially they're all linked to the same data set. You then start to work out a strategy for that asset or portfolio to get it inside the curve. So that's what you need to do. And there's no shortcut to that. You just need to start mapping out what are the package of initiatives, the package of work that we need to do over time. And this is not a quick fix either. This is something that we need to start looking at. Which of our assets are sitting significantly outside of the curve? Are they ones that we're going to be selling soon? Are we going to act on them in the short term? How are we going to develop a strategy? So I can't give you a quick off-the-shelf answer to that. And I also, we do work with a lot of certifications at Element 4. We do things like Well Building Standard and BREEAM and things like that. But I'm naturally quite sceptical about using any kind of certification standard as a silver bullet because there is no one certification that works for everything. Again, it's being strategic about it. And sometimes taking elements from different systems and putting them together in your own system. So, we may look at one asset and say, actually, there's not a great deal we can do about energy here. It may be a heritage asset, it may be something that's really old and in due course is probably going to be massively, maybe even demolished, but massively refurbished. So what can we do in the meantime? What's the strategic priority for this asset? Maybe it's more to do with community, maybe it's more to do with well-being. We can improve the quality of life for people using this asset. So there's no quick answer. You just need to look at benchmarking performance, looking at your influence and ability and opportunities on each of those sites.
Thank you, because
unfortunately there are no quick answers to any of this stuff, and the data thing, oh boy, have we struggled with that over the years as an industry.
I did want to just,
go.
I think there was a second question round about the government and what else we could be doing there.
because tender by tender, we are being asked to give a net zero plan. And the tenders have been scored like 10% of your overall evaluation. So if the data is not there and if it's not been benchmarked, on what basis are they going to justify the 10% score? And what do we need to come out with a plan?
So we help clients, what we do with that is come up with a plan. Now, a plan doesn't mean that you have the answer, but a plan says this is what we are doing over the next 2 years. So again, a client that we're working with at the moment, terrible data, terrible energy performance, but they are going through a revaluation of their entire portfolio. They have to start putting a plan in place. Now, that plan is year one, get reliable data. Pull together all of our energy, get a power purchasing agreement, go on to a true green tariff that adds additionality. That's year one. We're not going to achieve anywhere near net zero in year one, but we've got a strategy into year 2, year 3, year 4. And what the 10% scoring will be on the basis of is not that you have achieved net zero, it's that you are fully aware of the gaps in your knowledge, you've got a plan to fill those gaps, and you've got a plan of what you're going to do once you've got that data to get yourself to net zero. So having a really robust plan in place will be the basis of that 10%.
Thank you for the real presentation.